welcome to our set book analysis, and this morning I would like to take you through the Samaritan once again. And remember, our focus is more on examination approaches. Days are passing by and we are moving closer to examination, and therefore there is need to have proper preparation for our candidates. We've been attending workshops and gaining insights into really what matters at the end of the day. And that is why this channel is important, because anytime we go for a workshop, we make sure that the information or the insights that we have gathered from those workshops are actually shared amongst the teachers. So we are using the multi-approach to bring you information. That this information that comes directly from our desks, there is this also information where we get from the experts, we interview them, and through that interview, we are able to gain some insights when it comes to preparation of our students and our candidates. And again, we also have the workshop approach where we interact with specialists, experts in their own various fields, and after that, we bring to you the very information that they share with the teachers at workshops. So that is why it is important that you listen to us, because we actually gather this information from all over, and we want to make sure that this information reaches our students. As I've said, we would want to just look at some question here, and I would want you to help me interrogate this vis-a-vis the Samaritan. Now, the creative minds of the youth sometimes suffer setbacks because of the intimidation by our leaders. The creative minds of the youth sometimes suffer setbacks because of the intimidation that comes from our leaders. Then you are asked to discuss this statement, giving clear illustrations from the Samaritan by John Lara. And I want you to be very sober when it comes to the questions, because I attended a workshop recently and I got a lot of insight from the facilitator, who was actually giving us the breakdown of how to handle paper 3. And there is something that I gained this weekend when the facilitator said that always, if you look at how examination comes, you realize that when they set the essays, we have the 3-tier kind of interpretation. One side, the second side, and the third side. So that in your interpretation, or when you're writing the introduction, you must capture all those tiers for you to interpret the questions accordingly. Now, in this case, when you look at that question, the creative minds, so the candidate should be able to explain what creative minds are. And then the second part is sometimes the creative minds suffer setback. So that is now the second tier, where they have to explain the kind of setbacks, what setback is. And finally, this comes as a result of intimidation from our leaders. So if you look at that question, actually it's got all the 3 tiers. Tier number 1 is the creative minds of our youth. Tier number 2, that creative mind suffers setbacks. Then tier number 3 is intimidation. It comes as a result of intimidation from our leaders. So in your introduction, you have actually to bring all these sides of the question. For instance, when it comes to the creative minds now, you can talk about our innovative youth. Do you get that? Our innovative youth. Then there is a second bit. Sometimes suffer setbacks. Then you have to explain how that setback can be paraphrased. So when we say that the innovative brains of our youth sometimes actually are denied the opportunity to express themselves, you can say that, denied the opportunity to express themselves because of the leaders that we have. So in this case, we also want you to understand the meaning of intimidation. To intimidate someone is to frustrate that someone. So in this case, we can say that the innovative minds of our youth can sometimes and sometimes go through a lot of problems so that their abilities are not seen because of the frustrations that come from our leaders. So that could be a kind of an introduction. We are looking at those three tiers and they must be explained in one way or the other. So having given that introduction and what you need to do with the tiers, now let me move to how do you even develop the first paragraph. Because even as you develop your paragraphs, you must look at the three tiers. Because if you don't look at those three tiers, you may not actually get the 3 out of 3, what we call a full at the examination level. And in many occasions, people get thin because they have only looked at one side of the question. They are not actually giving sufficient illustrations or sufficient background to cover the 3 tiers of the paragraph. Now, if you look at this, we would pick a case of Alvita and Montano. They have come up with a very innovative thing, that is the Samaritan app. And this app is where people are supposed to upload information. Of course, it started as an app where people would upload information about environmental degradation. But when they realized that they could give it another use, now they brought it again so that people can upload information about our leaders, the kind of corruption or any other what we call misdoings, so that people know what is happening. So at that level, we are able to talk about what they have come up with, the Samaritan app, which is a very innovative idea. But you realize that they don't move with this idea as it was supposed to be because of the leaders. So this is now the setback, because they cannot move forward with this idea because of our leaders. How has this happened? This application is supposed to be launched during the school closing assembly, and Mayor Mosi has come. What has happened? At the end of it all, the launching does not take place. And the reason why the launching does not take place is because of the fact that the leaders, led by Mosi, feel that this app is actually going to unveil what they do. This app is going to discover them, to discover all the wrongdoings that are happening at Maracas municipality. And so the so-called the launch that was supposed to be there does not take place. So after that, they begin the process of intimidation. So you see the first bit of intimidation here is when they refuse to launch the app. And the second bit is that, these students were supposed to be awarded for the work well done, and they have not been awarded. So, they are beginning to suffer frustrations. The idea was noble, but now the way the leaders are beginning to behave, these boy and girl, Alvita and Montano, are unable to move forward with this innovation. Now, the second bit that we need to look at, even Madame Nicole is not an old person. Madame Nicole is also a youth and is also been in charge of innovation and ethics, and is the one that has actually inspired these students to come up with the Samaritan app. But you see that the launch has not taken place. So this thing affects Madame Nicole because he was actually the patron of these students, the teacher who actually was helping them to develop this idea. So when the launch doesn't happen, she gets frustrated. And again, there are a lot of frustrations that she undergoes because of this. The leaders now begin to look at her as a person who came up with this idea and not the students. And so now he is being crucified, that is actually hiding behind the students to sell the Samaritan app and also to frustrate the leaders who are in power, which is not very true because this thing was done by the students. And she undergoes through a lot of frustrations. Remember, the principal has actually disowned her and told her that she's not going to be part of what is happening. So she's beginning to suffer a lot of frustrations. She's not going to be part of the Samaritan app. And she believes that Madame Nicole actually has brought a lot of problems to her school. And therefore, she believes that the Samaritan idea must come to a stop. or to a close, and that is what she says. So all these things contribute to the suffering, all the suffering that Madame Nicole undergoes. It goes to a level that she's even arrested. They attempt to arrest her. Of course, they came, they ransacked her drawers and any other thing, retrieved all the papers, looking for that Samaritan app. Because they are not even aware that this is an online thing and they don't need to look for it from the drawers. So those are all the frustrations that she suffers. So sometimes when the youth come up with very good ideas that can help the society, the political class come to frustrate those ideas because those ideas could be a threat to what they are doing. And therefore, I wanted just to give a bit of some highlights so that as you discuss that question, there are so many things that you can look into so that you answer the question. The creative minds of the youth sometimes suffer setbacks because of the intimidation that comes from our leaders. Thank you. May God bless you abundantly as you continue to interact with our insights.